Hi, this is Adam from MakerState, and right now we're going to continue on with the Scratch Basics Challenge series. This challenge is called Floppy Fish, and it's basically a take on Flappy Birds, in which we're going to create a game in which players can move up, down, left, and right, and must avoid the top and bottom obstacles in the levels that they're in to complete the levels and progress through the game. So, to get started, I'm going to delete the cat from a new Scratch project using the scissors on top and add a new sprite. And you can use any sprite you want for this. I'm going to use fish, though. I'm going to use this fish, this grumpy orange spotted fish, and shrink that a little bit smaller right off the bat, just because I know that's going to be too big. Okay, now I'm going to create a backdrop by clicking on the stage backdrop area and then on backdrops. And I'm going to quickly paint this backdrop using my array of tools over here on the left side. First, I'm just going to shade the whole thing blue. Then I'm going to take a paintbrush. I'm going to select a dark gray color and get a little bit thicker of a stroke and do a kind of cave top design on the top and something similar down on the bottom. And I'm taking extra care to make sure that I'm not leaving any space between where the line ends and the edge of the backdrop, because the next thing I'm going to do is take this fill bucket with a lighter gray color and go in and fill those areas just like this. And now I have kind of a cave level sort of space to start my floppy fish game. Now I can write some scripts. So the first script I want to write is one that makes the fish go up if we're pressing the space bar and down if we are not pressing the space bar. And the block that's going to be the key to doing that is this if-then-else block that we can find from Control. So you might have used an if-then block before. This if-then-else block is very similar, except it adds an option for another action to be taken if the condition up here is not met. And in our case, that condition is going to be key space pressed. Again, I'm getting that from sensing, and that fits right into the top of this if-then-else block. And next, in order to make this sprite move up or down, we're going to have to use this change y by 10 block. So this might be a new concept for some people, the x and y coordinate grid system of our Scratch stage here. And to illustrate it, I'm just going to quickly pull up a different backdrop, this XY grid down here, which is very effective for demonstrating this. So we have this section of, a lot of our motion blocks use X and Y coordinates to dictate how they work and the movement that they'll create. And how that works in Scratch is our Scratch stage is one giant grid where 0, 0 is at the center of the grid, and X is being used to represent the horizontal location of the sprite. So, if we change X by a positive number, if I just keep clicking this, I will move to the right. And if I change X by a negative number, we'll move to the left. And we can see that the maximum X value is 240 and the, minimum doesn't seem like the right word, but the furthest left X value is negative 240. Okay? And same for the vertical limits, right? Positive 180 on top, negative 180 on bottom. Okay, so how are we going to use this in our code? Well, we know that changing y by a positive number will make our sprite move up, and changing y by a negative number will make our sprite move down. So when the space key is not pressed, our sprite's going to move down, and otherwise the sprite's going to move up. Let's go back to our backdrops here and just reset this to our cave quickly, and I can delete this one because we don't even need that. Okay, great. So back in our scripts for our fish, we have this script here, but we need a way to make this run over and over. And to do that, we need to run it to begin with, I should say. We're going to use a when green flag clicked block, and this is going to set off our script chain here. But if we try to run this as is, we saw we jumped just for a second there, but this isn't really working because this whole thing is only happening once, when in reality we need it to run over and over and over, which a forever block will help us do. So now if we run this, we go down, we go up, we go down, we go up. When we press the space bar, we can trigger the fish going up. If not, it will go down. And that seemed a little bit fast, so I'm going to put some new numbers in these blocks and make this 7 and negative 7. And now it will be a little bit more gentle of an up and down, but still the same idea. Great. Now I'm going to add some more if-then blocks, just normal if-then blocks without the else, to move our fish side to side. And this time I'm going to use this same key space pressed block, but I'm going to use this little black arrow here to choose what other key I want to use. And I'm going to use the right arrow, and I'm going to use a little trick here. When right arrow key pressed, change X by 10. I'm also going to add a point in direction 90, which 90 signifies right. And here comes the trick. Duplicate tool, this little stamp up here. I'm going to duplicate, clicking on the if statement itself to duplicate the if statement and everything inside of it. And now for the second one, I'm just going to reverse these. Oh, that wasn't reverse. Now I'm going to reverse these left arrow, negative 90, making it go to the left, making it point left, and then change X by negative 10, making it move to the left. So now, if I run this, we move up, we can move to the right, and we can move to the left. But when we flip to the left, we flip upside down. And that's because this point and direction block is making the fish do a full 180, so to speak, and face left. The way to fix that is to use this set rotation style left-right block, which is down here towards the bottom of motion. And what that's going to do is make it such that our fish can only go left, or can only, look left or look right, but will never flip vertically. Okay? So we're getting close to done with this script. We have a few other things to add. I'm going to add another if-then statement to make it so that whenever we hit these walls, we get sent back to the beginning. Okay? And for that, it'll be helpful to first define what the beginning is, which we can do using a go-to block. And again, this go-to X and Y block, these coordinates refill whenever, or I shouldn't say refill, but they track wherever the current position of the sprite is. So I'm going to put the sprite where I want it to go, and then take the go-to block. Put that in here, and then my condition for this if-then statement will be if touching color. Now, we need to set this color, and the way we do that is by clicking on the color box and then moving our mouse to the color that we want to set it to, which is this dark gray right here for me. And I'm going to click on that, and now when we run this, when we hit that gray, we go back to the beginning. And that's a little abrupt. What I think I'm going to do is actually add a wait 1 second block there. Another thing I'm going to do is shrink the fish down a little bit more, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, we're almost done. Now, the last thing we need is something to maybe signify the end of a level. And by that I mean, let's pick another sprite that our fish is going to be chasing in order to finish each individual level. And we're going to add a few more levels to this after this first level here. So I'm going to choose these cheesy puffs. These always make for a good prize. I'm going to shrink those down a little bit, like so, and then place them over here. And what I'm going to do is say, if touching cheesy puffs, then we're going to go back to this initial spot here, and we're going to go into looks and switch backdrop to next backdrop. And what this is going to allow us to do is to load up multiple backdrops that we will cycle through as we progress through the game. So let's try this out. If I hit the bottom, I go back to my starting spot, but if I make it over the cheesy puffs, then I go back to the starting spot, and right now we only have one backdrop, so that makes sense. But what I'm going to do is stop this for a moment, go to my backdrop area, and paint a new backdrop using this tool. So what I'm going to do here is just create another backdrop similar to the one I created before. I'm going to use the fill bucket with blue again, but this time I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated. Not a lot more complicated because I want it to be doable, but a little bit more complicated. Maybe just one or two features that'll make it more difficult. Yeah, that looks good. Oh, but I have to be careful not to draw this line through the cheesy puff. So let me try that one more time. I'll try that line a little bit lower this time. That's better. Okay, so now I'm going to take my fill bucket and fill these walls again. 1, 2, good. Okay, and let's see if this works. Can I do this? Yep, that's pretty good. Got it, great. So one thing I think I'm going to add is just to wait 1 second before we do all of this. Just so we can relish in getting to the cheesy puffs before we go to the next level. Great. Okay. And the other thing I'm going to do is initialize, and to initialize is to set the beginning or initial value for some property, we're going to set our initial location. Actually, I'm just going to duplicate this go-to block again. Go to x negative 206, y2. And I'm going to set my initial direction with this point and direction block. And I'm also going to set the initial costume using a switch backdrop to backdrop 1. And so it should go without saying, you know, we can add as many of these backdrops as we want. Right now there are 2. And I'm not going to draw any more right now, but you can draw as many as you'd like and make them get harder and increase in difficulty. And the thing that's nice is if you leave the fish starting point here and the cheesy puffs here, you won't have to do any work as far as moving those around between levels, and you can just build more and more levels, build up complexity with the levels, etc. One more last thing I'm going to add to the fish script is maybe some dialogue that's going to say something like, use the space bar to swim up, and maybe get the cheesy puffs without touching the walls. So let's see how that looks. Good, so we set back to the initial costume, we're giving the directions, and now we can play. When we get that cheesy puffs, we freeze for a second, we go to the next level, and this will just keep going however many levels we have, and then eventually bring it back to the beginning. But for now, that's as much as we're going to do. You can build more levels and maybe build a game over screen or a winning screen after you've completed however so many backdrops. Last thing I'm going to do is add a title. I'm going to say Floppy Fish. I'm going to save it over here in the right corner, and that's going to be it for this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you for the next video.